Welcome back, everyone, to another new episode of Grow Your Path to Wellness. If you missed it last week, we've had two guest cancellations. It's kind of name of the game around holiday season, but Amanda and we did a quick check-in with everybody just about, I don't know, it's kind of a montage of things, a holiday season, how to maintain boundaries with loved ones, and a little bit of seasonal change and how that's impacting people and coping with that. This week, we were supposed to have Dr. Virgie. She was going to be talking about the best way or only way to pay a medical bill, but we're keeping an eye out for her to reschedule. We don't have that date yet, but hopefully we will soon. So Lisa, it's Mrs. Lisa Schaefer, she was kind enough to join us again. And this week, we are going to do an impromptu chat just about how mindfulness and meditation can be a really effective tool, especially going into the holiday season. So thank you for joining us again, Lisa. It's always so good seeing you.
Yes, thank you so much. I absolutely love sharing time with you, wonderful people. Meditation and mindfulness, it does not have to be this big, grand thing. And even mindfulness is really just cultivating an awareness of your surroundings, what's going on emotionally, what's going on physically, and kind of looking at how do we pay attention to that when those things are happening. One of the things that I do is I teach my clients how to kind of identify, the standard mad, sad, glad, fear, but then we know that there's huge dimensions in that. I like to typically teach people on a scale of 1 to 10. So that seems to be pretty manageable. So then what is your 1 sad feel to your 10 sad feel? How does it feel physically? How does it feel emotionally? What does it look like behaviorally? Same thing through, mad, happy, fear. And really just kind of starting to tune in, because then when we can be aware of those biological factors, like, oh, my heart's kind of starting to race and I'm not really sure what's kind of causing that, or my hands are starting to get sweaty, or, I'm feeling, like I'm starting to shut down emotionally. Like, what are the tools that we can use to kind of get back online?
And then to Lisa, some like with my clients when I do this, and I do very similar, like, of course, we do what we do, but I teach my clients because like a lot of us will not be connected to the signals our body is sending us, but also if we are connected to them, it can get to the place where I'm connected to them on extremes. Like I quickly am overwhelmed and I fight, flight, freeze, fawn. That's where I go almost instantly. Like I can't sit with that a whole lot just starting out. And I remember like we talk on here a lot about like those light bulb moments, and I'll teach my clients, I was like, well, let's just start with connecting, being very mindful of and observing without judgment, but also, is this unsafe? Or am I uncomfortable? When I say that out loud, they're like, yeah, usually most of the time I'm not actually unsafe. I was like, because you can listen to that, you can trust that. I said, but is there things happening that you're genuinely, unsafe, or you really uncomfortable, which is also valid, but they're different. And they might both feel the same starting out.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we're out of our bodies so much that, and I know I've talked about this before, probably on here with Lisa as a guest, or maybe with Lisa separately and somewhere else, because, we see each other everywhere. But about like clients having a challenging time, is this a trauma response or is this my gut instinct? Because, I teach a lot of intuitive coping and following your gut and your instinct. And so I think that kind of falls into it as well, as when we're not tapped in, when we're so disconnected from being in the present moment and being mindful. When we start to do that, it's a learning lesson like anything else. And there's lots of hoops and curves that we have to figure out along the way.
Yeah. And I love that you said, are we making observations or judgments? Because that is critical to this process of, being curious, like, I wonder why I'm having this experience, as opposed to kind of getting into those negative tapes. And then we kind of start getting into that negative, self-talk or other behaviors that aren't self-serving. Whereas if we just became curious, like, how did I go from 0 to 60? What was the trigger? I had a client that I met with recently who, discussed having a panic attack at work. And I was like, well, what was going on? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, what was the conversation? And they were like, it was very general, very neutral. It was, something that we were laughing about. And I'm like, well, are there memories connected to the things that you were talking about? No, not that I'm aware of. Okay, let's dial it back even further. Like, did you sleep well the night before? Were you starting to get into a high stress time in your job? Like, there's lots of different points of that intervention, much like, when people who relapse from substance use, they relapse, in their minds a long time before they actually put that substance in their mind or in their body. And a lot of times people don't have the awareness of, well, how did I get at Jim Bob's house where there was a bunch of drugs, or at the bar, and now I'm drinking and driving again? It's, what are the steps that kind of led to that? And really needing to pay attention to what's going on, and being curious.
100%. And I say to, like, I know at the beginning we said in going into the holidays, and I teach clients how to observe these things for themselves without judgment, because as soon as we judge it, then we're giving it so much power and it just runs away from us. And then we're to the place where, maybe hopelessness, worthlessness. And then we're at a shutdown point again and thinking of possible alternative perspectives or ways to navigate the situation is very hard. But another component that kind of popped into my head, and I didn't want to lose it, was going into the holiday season. Not only do I teach people how to observe things for themselves, especially if we do have to go and visit family that we get uncomfortable or feel unsafe around, like if we just don't have any control or option, and whether we do that or not. I also say be observant of the other people around you without judgment of yourself, like without assigning it any value, any weight, any control over you. Just observe Aunt Sally's body language and the way that she speaks to people or you. And when they think about that, I was like, you can almost make it like a challenge for yourself, like in a silent, in my own head kind of thing. Like, how many things can I just observe about my family if I have to be here? It keeps me present, but I'm not being like sucked into all of it. And I found it to be really helpful. And then my clients, they'll come back and I do it myself, because I have 20,000 places to go on the holidays and it's stressful. And I'm like, just go into it and see how many things you could be curious about and observe. And it really takes the personal, value component out of it. And it kind of puts it in those other people's hands.
I think,
I'm so sorry. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like the game Where's Waldo? So you're able to stay present, look for, all of the yellow bananas, all of the things. And so, yeah, you're able to stay present, but it's not something that's going to be overwhelming for you. I love that.
I was just going to say, like, I think we don't realize, and I know I've talked about this before, but like, we don't realize that how much we are literally programmed, right? Like our brain and our body is like a computer. It's going to work at best efficiency. And so that means taking all the things that feel similar or seem similar when we're taking in data and just organizing them into boxes and responses and meaning without us even recognizing it, because that's what helps the program function better, right? Otherwise, we would be going through every single day of our lives like, okay, now it's time to wake up. Now I need to walk and put my feet down and take them once, right? Like we don't have time to be doing that. So I just wanted to like point that out, that we our brains are very smart and intelligent. And so of course, if we don't slow down, we're going to get stuck in those automatic patterns. And it is really challenging, even for, I'll say it for all three of us, even doing what we do, it's very challenging to go against that programming and write a new program. And yet we have neuroplasticity. And so if you put the commitment in there, you can rewire your brain and you can rewire your nervous system. You can train it to feel safe or be more mindful in those situations.
Yeah. And, a lot of people think that like mindfulness or meditation are exercises. Like I have to sit on my bolster and I have to have, my altar set up. And those are really great things if you have the time and the space for that practice. But mindfulness and meditation can be just like what Chelsea said earlier, checking in with your body. Like, what does this feel like? Can I take, some solitude in a minute and take 10 breaths or 5 breaths and get centered and, get my nervous system back in regulation? And that's ultimately, what we're looking to do when we are feeling emotional distress, is how can we regulate through that? And unfortunately, even in good circumstances, the holidays are just darn stressful. You've got the shopping and the present buying and, like Kelsey said, going, to maybe many different families, and you want to make sure everybody has sufficient or fair time. And that puts a lot of pressure and stress on us as individuals, even in good circumstances.
I know at the start, like, well, I think we hadn't started recording yet, but we kind of touched on, or we're maybe going to bring up like the Sam says 8 dimensions of wellness, and so brought up the financial, there's so many expectations when it comes to holidays anyways, but then we've had a pandemic, and then like, I don't know, we're living in a dumpster fire. Like a lot of things are really rough right now, but like none of those ties into Amanda's, statement about it's just this program system. This is just the way that things have to be done. This is what's expected this time of year. And even if I have to completely sacrifice myself, my peace, my financial stability, my whatever, I have to do that. Like that's just our automatic, like, okay, I have to spend this amount of money on each person for Christmas, and like all the things. And it's been, I'm sure for all three of us, like very hot topic right now with a lot of clients. And I'm like, but like, says who? And it's hard because it's like everybody else in our system has been programmed for the same system. So it's like, if we do something differently, it's likely that we will be faced with, that's where being mindful and observant can be helpful, because people likely could project things onto us if we try to change up that system. Or, hey, I'm actually going to do this type of gift giving this year rather than $200 for, each person or whatever. But it's really hard to break these expectations, and it brought the financial component up in my mind.
I was also just going to say like the social, well, there's so many dimensions here, but like we're social creatures. Like we are social beings at our core, even no matter how modernized we get. And so even just like wanting to be relatable and not, even just at the most primal, like not wanting to be kicked out of the herd, like the group, right? Like we don't want to lose our pack. And so anything we do can kind of go through that survival mechanism of like, is this going to make me an outsider? Is this going to push me away? And I have this own, like, these are examples for me where I can touch on all the dimensions of wellness. I have a friend group that we stay in touch via Facebook Messenger. There's like 7 of us and Marco Polo every day. Like not everyone's on both of them, but we pretty much touch everyone. And, we'll all check in and say like what we did today or what they're doing this weekend or what's going on in our lives. And so many of them yesterday while I was home with my sick kid and like just like totally burnt out from being at a conference and driving and all the things, and I just needed to rest, and I was trying with my own brain to be like, it's okay to rest and not do anything. Then they're in the chat like, oh, I'm so proud, like I got up at this time this morning and I worked out, and then I went and got some Christmas shopping done, and then we're gonna go make dinner. And I'm over here like, I'm a bad mom. Oh my God, there's no time left. I gotta find the money to spend on those things. And I went through like all those dimensions, right? Like, and then that's I think where the friction comes in, because we have a choice there to continue to go down the negative path of comparison, or we say, hey, these people really love me and care about me, and they're not going to judge me. They're going to love me because of who I am.
I think it's how I found my true people. I don't know if that says, that's instantly what came up for me. I don't know. I think that ties in there, but I instantly was like, and that is how I have found those people that I actively choose to keep in my life. I'm not like, whatever, those expectations of being perfect at it and all the things, like, that's not the point, because those people don't make me feel that way. And I know other people out there listening to this right now, probably a lot of people don't have 100% control or ability right now to make those types of changes in relationships or environments that they're in, or their own financial circumstances, so many things. But yeah, you find out over time, and especially these types of situations, what people will like are unconditional, I guess. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, I know that now. I know that looking outside of myself, being mindful, taking inventory, like those people would not make me feel that way. I'm falling into those programmed patterns, perspectives, expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that, Kelsey. We actually have a group of friends where we just meet for dinner. It's not even anything about necessarily the holiday. We call it Friendsgiving, just because we could meet around, the Thanksgiving timeframe. It could be before. I mean, like, it just kind of depends on when we all have that availability. But one of the things that's been coming up a lot in clients, which also I know it's something I've wrestled with, is now that we're married and now that we are a new unit of two, and maybe a new family unit as well, is how do we honor their traditions and the rituals that we grew up in while making my own and making this about my family. And, my husband and I, we don't have children, but this is a conversation we constantly have, especially since the pandemic, where, that really did force a lot of people to change the way that they showed up for these kinds of types of holidays. And, I would say for us, it has helped draw those boundaries immensely, because it was a wonderful excuse to say, oh no, it's just going to be the two of us this year, and that's something, a lot of people really struggle with when we talk.
And I think too, like the whole, your family, like we can say all day long, like your needs are valid, your boundaries are valid, and like your family, your own family unit is just as valid. Like I can only speak for myself, of course, but it's just my husband and I, and we're programmed to say it's just my husband and I say it all the time, because I feel like there's that, it goes in one of those expectations. If you don't have a child or multiple children, or if you don't have children, then you're not a family. You need to start a family. And if you haven't started a family, then you need to be the ones who are the most porous or relaxed or happy. Some families just you're expected to have no boundaries with things. You need to do what's more convenient for everybody else who have families. And I'm like, that's not true. And it doesn't have to be, my truth. Like and that's been a hard thing for just myself, my husband and I, getting like, we're on the same page, but we catch ourselves still going through the motions. And it's like, all of these things are valid, even if you're one person in a larger family system.
And I'm sorry, Amanda. I know, I was going to say, I know Amanda and I both talk a lot about values, which I assume, Kelsey, you do as well. And that is part of that emotional component as well, because even though we grow up in these family systems, our values aren't going to be 100% the same. And especially as we grow up and become independent adults, our goals are going to be very different. And, you know, regardless of whether we had good experiences or maybe not functional experiences, how we set these traditions are part of our own pursuit of emotional fulfillment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was going to switch topics, not really, but kind of like the family stuff is always huge. And I think around the holidays, that's like one of the biggest barriers that I honestly see, like personally with my friends, with clients. But I think like you brought up recovery earlier, and I think that that's an important topic to talk about with holidays because so much of our culture, it just normalizes alcoholism in general, and it's so easy to access, right? And so I wanted to point that out because I think like occupational wellness, right? Like there are some employers, you know, some for-profit businesses that celebrate and go all out with all of their profit. You know, and they have open bars and they're popping bottles, and or they're having, you know, this big like Christmas or New Year's Eve celebration, and there's lots of alcohol. And so I just definitely want to touch on that. Like Lisa, I know you work a lot in this arena, and so is how can someone incorporate mindfulness to take care of themselves in that realm around the holidays?
I think that that's a wonderful kind of pivot, because that also goes with the physical dimension of, you know, am I over consuming, and not only just alcohol, but I'm going to add sugar in there, you know, because it also, you know, impacts the same, you know, brain parts. And for somebody who may be in recovery, I would say, you know, really kind of creating that alliance of, you know, what or who are the people that you can call on, or that you can, you know what the meeting's going to be on, you know, Thanksgiving Eve or maybe the next morning. So it's kind of having that plan of action, not going to places that, you know, are going to be popping bottles, or maybe you go for dinner and as soon as everybody's done eating, then that's the time that you respectfully leave. And there's been a huge rise in what is being coined like sober consciousness. And so these are people who might not necessarily feel like they're addicted or that they have had negative consequences because of their primarily alcohol use, but they choose to be alcohol free because of the harmful effects that alcohol does bring to our bodies. And so, you know, even for those people, going to a holiday party where there's a bunch of use and mayhem going on might not feel in alignment with themselves.
Yeah, I was also thinking, you know, I was thinking about how many times we're like, hey, these programs or these services are available to get, you know, even if you do choose to partake, like environmental / physical / social, there's a lot of areas of wellness there. You know, are you, like you said, the plan, right? So if you are choosing, hey, you know, I do want to partake in this, I'm willing to go with all the consequences that come with it, the natural consequences, not bad, no, you know, whatever, good, bad, and different. But are you actually taking up those offers of like, hey, you can get a free, you know, DD, free ride home? And then the other thing I was thinking, like, especially with the occupational wellness, is do you feel confident enough to communicate and set those boundaries? And do you have safety in your workplace, right? Where you're not going to be judged or shamed or any of those things for saying, hey, you know, I'm sober, or can you say I'm sober? Do you feel comfortable enough? Those kind of things.
Yeah, the first thing my brain went to was safety, and alcoholism runs rampant in both my husband and I's side of our family. And it's like, we are very mindful just in general. And I think it goes right back to how normalized use is, and then the judgment that you can face from people if you do say, oh, no, thank you, or you can just feel some energy shifts and things like that. But that's if you can make the call to not go. Or I like, Lisa, what you said, the creating, and I do that a lot with my clients and myself. I was like, if I'm going with somebody, I always say, are there things that you can have in place that would make you feel more in control if you still want to go? And I'll say, like, does that mean you drive separately? Does that mean that you can come up with a code word between you and the person that went with you? Like, I don't want to go alone. I want to drive separate. Can we come up with a way of me signaling you, hey, I'm at my limit, or pineapple, I'm ready to go. I don't know. And I've seen those types of things. Just go into it very prepared if you want to go.
I think what the biggest lesson maybe for today is find compassion for yourself. When we can pour into our cups, and whether that's through, meditation, mindfulness, other self-care type activities, we are able to then have the willpower to make better decisions. When we are at our end of all of the decision making, then we start to make not functional decisions, or decisions that we could have said no to, but we said yes because we were tired. So kind of just checking in with self to make sure, like, how many decisions have I made? A really great book called Willpower talks a lot about like setting up habits and relying on habits versus relying on willpower. So, that saying no is very important. But if we're having to be in situations where we're constantly using willpower, then we will run out. We will end up on empty, which could get us into some problematic situations if we don't have those safeguards set up.
Okay, so we talked about like setting boundaries. It's okay maybe not to go to that family's, holiday. If you are choosing and acknowledging that the place that you're going to be going might be a little activating for whatever reason, a little dysregulating for whatever reason, what are some, I know we talked about being curious and those sorts of things, but my mind kind of goes to like, maybe I would recommend one of my clients before getting in the car to go, because sometimes even the drive there can be anxiety producing given the weather where you live or the traffic. Maybe sitting down and just like listening to a guided meditation, or turning on some peaceful music and just taking some breaths, or maybe like grunting in the car on the way there to activate your vagus nerve. So, and then, even when they're there, so like the before, the on the way there, the after, and then even maybe the decompressing. Do you have any recommendations in that light for as far as meditation and mindfulness?
Yeah, I think all of those things are very important. And, coming back, recognizing, what is the need? What will make you feel fulfilled? Is it the, box of Oreos that are going to make you feel fulfilled? Or is it connection with other people? Really recognizing the difference between solitude versus isolation. So are you overstimulated and overwhelmed, and so now we're isolating? Or is this really true solitude? Are you curled up, maybe with your fur babies, with a book, or with your favorite movie or show? And, how are you filling your cup?
I love that. And something that's helpful, that I found helpful for, like, if you are feeling like you need connection, something I have seen that's helpful, it's been helpful for myself in a nutshell, is like, let one of your people know, like somebody outside of your family, a really close, trusted, safe friend, or, it's likely you've been talking about how you're feeling about the holidays with them already, and see if they can be available for like for like a quick phone call, chat, or FaceTime or something. So that way, like we always say in our field, if you're not speaking it, you're storing it. Like if you want solitude, do something with that and your experience and how you felt physically, emotionally, do that in solitude. Or if you feel like that need to connect with somebody else, like have somebody like, hey, I'm gonna hold myself accountable. I'm gonna leave at 6 p.m. Would you be available to chat or just listen? Can you just listen to me tonight whenever I get home? So I found that to be helpful as well.
The other thing that I just want to remind everybody is that we take our breath wherever we go. Breath is life. Breath is the thing that will regulate and reconnect you to your body. And so even if you find yourself in a high stress situation, you can do breath work and no one will know. No one around you will know, unless maybe you're doing like breath of fire or lion's breath and something that's a little more activating. But we're not going to be trying to do those things when we're trying to calm ourselves down. So maybe like box breathing or, extending the exhale. Maybe even doing some tapping that, again, especially if your family members don't know, just grabbing the tip of your knuckle in sequence is a great way to just calm yourself down. Tapping on the inner part of your wrist. Again, if your hands are in your lap, nobody's going to notice that you're tapping yourself to stay calm and to stay regulated. So there's a lot of things that we can do even in the height of emotional dysregulation that a lot of people aren't even going to know that we're doing it to keep ourselves calm and centered.
Oh man, we're running out of time. I just wanted to validate that this is a reason why it is so beneficial to go to therapy, even if you don't feel like you have a very significant mental health condition or a significant crisis or trauma. Going to a therapist or a counselor is a place. It's like a learning field. It's like school, but for your regulation and your nervous system and your coping, right? Like all the things that Lisa just said, and I'm over here tapping as she's talking about breath because I'm like, oh, you could do this and you could do that. We have these things readily available. Not that we always regularly apply them. However, we have these options readily available, whereas the general public might not because you weren't educated and given those things. So I just wanted to validate, if you're not sure what to do, there's nothing wrong with you. Society didn't teach you that. And that's why therapy is wonderful. You can come for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions and get some really good basic coping skills. And then that's it. Like you don't have to stay there forever. So I just wanted to plug that in there real quick. Lisa, thank you as always for being here. We love that you could fill in. Your energy is so necessary and appreciated. And we will definitely have you back soon, I'm sure, because, we can't go very long without having you here. And then for our listeners, next week, we are bringing Annie King in. I believe this is a therapist that Kelsey works with. She's going to be talking about deconstructing a lifetime of faith, seeking authenticity and freedom. So very much looking forward to that conversation. And we will see you next time. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.